Today, we're going to have a Zoom conversation on Getman virtual book fairs, specifically trying to expand the market in terms of book collectors, book buyers, and even if you are a dealer, if you want to consider participating in one of these fairs. And I am sitting here with a veteran live fair producer, the leader in these virtual fairs, the kingpin, the impresario, Marvin Getman himself. So, Marvin, before we get into what a virtual book fair is, and specifically a Getman virtual book fair, give us a little bit of background about yourself as a show promoter, show producer.
Well, sure, Adam. Thank you for interviewing me. This will be a new experience. Um, we're on different coasts, I think. We're what 3 hours apart here.
Yeah, today.
Um, so I've been in business. I started producing shows in 1979. I know I don't look my age, but it was 41 years ago that I produced my first show in the Boston area, and I was doing antique shows back then. Um, and the business evolved into a variety of other types of ventures and shows. I did crafts shows for a while. I actually produced motorcycle shows of all things in the '80s with a partner, and here I am producing virtual and antiquarian book fairs. I started the book fairs in the late '90s in Boston. I was running antique shows at the time, and I decided that I wanted to try large show that would include books and antiques. Um, I was approached by a local organization that of booksellers. Marriott was the group at that time, and they asked me to take over and manage one of their shows. So I decided to do that and to merge that show with an antique show. So I rented a big hall in Boston. It was the Bayside Expo Center, um, and it went pretty well. I mean, we had 70 booksellers, um, and I had 80 antiques dealers. Um, and I moved the show to the World Trade Center, Boston, the year after that. Um, and then we had this financial crisis that kind of killed the show. That people just didn't want to spend that kind of money. That was in 1997, I believe. Um, it was a lot of money to no, it was 2007, I guess, the financial crisis.
Sure.
Um, and so anyway, one thing led to another, and I moved that show to the suburbs. I was doing shows in Wilmington, Massachusetts, and most recently, I've been running shows from Boston to New York. I have 3 shows in New York: the Greenwich Village show, the satellite show to the big Armory show, and also the Brooklyn Antiquarian Book Fair. And that show, I guess, well, it's become a pretty big show.
Yeah,
We would have had our
we all love
seventh.
Brooklyn Fair, sure.
Yeah, we would have had our seventh this past September. So we all know what happened in March. My last show was in Manhattan, the first weekend in March. It was the satellite show to the Armory show. It went very well. We had a great 2 days, a good crowd for both days. Um, and a week later,
Sure.
all hell broke loose and the country fell apart, and all shows had to come to a stop.
So that takes us right up to COVID.
Yeah.
I can tell you as a bookseller, rare book dealer, how important, in-person book fairs were, at least in terms of my revenue, engaging with clients, librarians, and even the material itself. And of course, COVID upended everything, as it did for many businesses. And There was a business advertisement I saw that was like a word play on, the English motivational poster. It said, "Stay calm and pivot."
Mhm.
So you have certainly pivoted. Maybe give us a little bit about it. How did you basically, rebuild your business faster than they rebuild a carburetor and grease light?
So there we were the second week in March. Um, I had a couple of shows scheduled. One would be a new show in DC for April, and then the Ephemera Society show, which I've managed for 5 years, and that would be in Greenwich, Connecticut. That would have been the end of March. Um, I had two options. One is to retire or to try something new, and I chose the latter. I sat down at a computer, started to design what I envisioned would be uh, the perfect virtual book fair. I tried to, in my mind at least, emulate what it might be like walking through a live book fair, but doing it on a computer screen. So I had this idea, and now I had to find a developer, someone who could take that idea and make it reality. I shopped around all over the United States. I couldn't find anyone that really understood what I wanted to do. I ended up very luckily being introduced to a developer programmer in South Africa. Uh, I called him up and he understood what I wanted. He said he could get it done. We made a deal. And 3 months later, it was the first week in June, was the first Getman virtual book fair.
Now, you really impressed me as a seller, I have to say, with not only your pivot, but the simplicity and the ease of use of your platform. And while there have been other virtual book fairs, yours has really stood out as the preeminent platform. I have to say, honestly.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I would ask you, first of all, for people who don't know what a virtual book fair is exactly, the general audience, how does shopping on a virtual book fair differ than, say, going on eBay or Etsy, a site where, you could just buy it now, for instance?
Well, those I don't pay much attention to eBay or Etsy, but from what I understand, and like any other book selling site, the books are there forever. They stay there until they're sold. I think percentages are taken or charged. I wanted to take the concept from the ground up, really not paying much attention to those other sites. Um, I wanted to make it easy for the bookseller to load their items. One thing I know about live shows is that the load in, load out of any live show is very important. It has to be comfortable for the dealers, um, and whether or not they have a good show of sales, if they've had a lousy load in, you know,
Well,
they
that part is exhausting. I heard one of the dealers on our chat line says he liked your load in. He says, and I'm doing the book fair and I'm still in pajamas. So
yeah,
that
well,
stuck out to me.
that's it exactly. Make the load in easy. Again, I sat down with actually, it was a Zoom call with the developer. I didn't go to South Africa. And we discussed all of that, making it easy to load in. Um, the concept would be that the load in would be as many photos as a dealer wanted. And we thought that was important. There would be a main photo and then unlimited additional photos. There would be what I called the booth. The booth is a
Mhm.
page that shows approximately 15 items. Why did I limit the number of items? Because I want the show and the fair to be fresh every month. If I allowed 50 or 60 or 70 items, that would be fine if I were doing a semi-annual online show or an annual online show. Let the dealers put as many items as they want. But I wanted to do something monthly, uh, and I wanted to keep it fresh. So I limited the items, and I've experimented with that. I started off with 12, went to 15. My fair that begins next week, which I'm calling the Quickie 12-hour book fair, has a limit of 9 items. So one of the beauties of being on my own without any committees to speak to is I can make these decisions quickly and I can react quickly and try different things.
Well, you did a fine job, I would say, of replicating the essence of a book fair. You get in, and you made it very easy to either navigate, but also just to go booth by booth and quickly browse, without being overwhelmed, which is extraordinarily important because, of course, dealers want to quickly get in and see what everybody has, but the general public too wants to see everybody's inventory, and you made it very easy to understand how to operate the site. But let me ask you this: so you have the fairs monthly. First of all, where do people go to find out information about the fairs, to get the schedule for the fairs?
Well, my other website, which is bookandpaperfairs.com, that lists all of the fairs that are on my platform, which includes my own book fairs, plus other promoters who are licensing the platform. I list their shows there as well.
Gotcha. So we'll definitely post that. Now, for like the general public, for instance, they come in. What type of material should they expect? What type of price range?
Well, the price range is varied. I mean, I've seen items for $10 on the site, and the most costly item that was sold was over $200,000. It is, uh, you know, you're going to see the same price ranges that I guess you see at a live fair. But then again, I think at the live fairs where the overhead is much higher, the prices tend to be on the upper end uh, in order for the dealers to cover their overhead, their travel costs. That's the beauty of this site. The rents are really reasonable, and the range of rents is for an average fare would be $75 to $225. So with 15 items, that enables the dealer to offer uh, a wide variety of price ranges.
Yeah.
And I would say, from what I can see, the sweet spot is in the 300 to $1,000 range. When I've looked at the numbers based on what has sold, I see a median in the $500 to $600 range.
Now, one of the
And
things about a live book fair is most people are familiar who come to a live book fair. They've been to one before. They know the antiquarian or rare market, so they're prepared a little bit for it. The virtual fair, of course, you're greatly expanding the clientele, both in the types of people who visit the fair and also geographically. And I think, in some level, you're a lot of these people have not been familiar with live book fairs, but they've been preconditioned to e-commerce and buying online. So for those type of people, give a little bit of information in terms of how it works on the site. You want to buy a book? Do you buy it right off the site? Do you have to contact the dealer? What type of return policies are in place? These are the things that people who are used to e-commerce might have questions on.
exactly. The site was built so that a person can browse booth by booth. If you want to see, everything in the show, you can go booth by booth, and that's one way. The other way is to search by category or by keyword. And I wanted to make certain that we had a very robust search engine, so that the collector who's coming in looking for just one category will be able to uh, key that in and immediately, and it really is quick, immediately get a list with the photos of all of the items in the show that meet that category. Uh, so there's a variety of ways to peruse the site, and I think that that's what makes it somewhat unique is that you can come in and get out quickly if you're just looking for one type of item,
And
or
would
if
you
you're
buy it
yeah,
on the site, or you buy
you
it on?
don't actually. That was the other thing that I wanted to make sure that the the transaction was between the buyer and the seller. We are not a middleman. We don't collect money. Um, so the buyer contacts the seller. Every page, every booth has the contact information from the dealer, their website as well, their email address, their phone number. And I think it's, from what I understand, according to dealers, it's pretty split between getting email inquiries and getting phone calls. And it works very well. The dealers are now experimenting with direct payment links, and I see that happening more and more, to where on a particular item page there may be a link that says buy this item now, and dealers have been adding in their own um, payment links, whether it's Square or PayPal. And that's something we're exploring. We're always enhancing the site, and that is one of our next developments will be to make it easier for there to be a purchase between the buyer and the seller.
Yeah, well, I
That
can tell you as a bookseller, I really appreciated that aspect of it because, when you're a live fair, there's no intermediary platform between the buyer and seller. The whole purpose of doing a fair is to meet directly and engage with clients. So you've preserved very nicely that aspect of it. You certainly can meet new clients on your fair, and you can interact with people in a very easygoing way. So I like that rather than being some buffer like on some of eBay or other sites that just have a platform make the buyer virtually invisible. They own the client. You're just selling your item, and there is no love and passion in selling that way. I have to say.
Yeah, that's what I understand. I want to make sure that that aspect is maintained.
I understand. Um, so, in terms of return policies and all that type of thing, you would go directly to the dealer then, because you said the platform is not an intermediary in and of itself.
We're not e-commerce, so every dealer has their own policies, which are clearly listed on their booth page and on every item page at the bottom. The dealer includes their policies, return policies, or any other notes um, that they may have. They're visible on the booth page.
So we're hopefully we've got the light at the end of the tunnel of this epidemic. Uh, you know, we all hope live fairs will be returning. What are going to be the future of these virtual book fairs? How do you see them evolving?
Well, I've I've concluded that I'm going to stay in the virtual business. I will um, hold on to and continue to promote a couple of my more popular live fairs, but I want to devote my time to improving I'm convinced that this media is going to continue. There's no question in my mind, and in surveys that I've done with dealers and with customers, um, the virtual fair will continue. But I will probably add a couple of my live fairs. I imagine my Brooklyn Fair, which is very popular, the Ephemera Society Fair, which is also very popular, and I've been asked to continue to manage that. This year in March, it'll be virtual, and we'll look at 2022, and hopefully by then we're back to normal. But
I certainly hope they continue, evolving, whether as standalones, as complements, because I think it does two things. Certainly it's an alternate venue, but you have such a different, range of people who visit a virtual fair, who may, just be intimidated even, veteran book collectors are intimidated by nothing. But people who start out, to go to the New York Antiquarian Fair, even to, a hipper fair like your Brooklyn Fair, can be an intimidating experience, if you're not used to it. So I
right.
certainly hope they continue. I think it's going to bring a lot of collectors into the fold. Uh,
Well, that's what I hope to do, and we're adding content is important. You've been to my Brooklyn Fair, and a few years ago, I started to bring in seminars, live seminars to the Brooklyn Fair, I have a program director, Brian, who's very creative at bringing in speakers on non-traditional subjects, let's say, not your traditional, how to buy a book kind of
Right.
thing. Esoteric subjects on grimoires or uh, you know uh, a number of subjects that have been done, and we have a
The
big audience
hidden,
that comes
fun,
in.
juicy parts of it all.
What's that?
The hidden, the fun, and the juicy parts of the trade, right?
Well, that's it, and by doing that, I found that I brought in people to the show who had never been to an antiquarian book fair, and that is my goal. Let's broaden the base of collectors, and people that have never actually come to a live fair. And I think I see that with the virtual fairs. I can see the demographics uh, from the statistics and the analytics that sure, about a third of the people are 65 and older. Uh, a third are between 45 and 65, and another third below 45. And that's really what's encouraging to me. The numbers in the younger brackets and people really from all over the world. We have um, as many as 12,000 people coming to these virtual fairs. And gosh, I've never had that many people come
Sure.
to one of my live fairs, not even close. So we,
So
we see,
you've made the virtual fairs sound very innovative and exciting in terms of the depth and reach of clients that are going to attend. But what about for dealers? I mean, I joined your virtual fair early on because I've known you through the real book fair world. But what about dealers who want to participate in your fair? How do they go about that? Is there a process?
so it's very easy process. Dealers register right from the website, getmansvirtual.com. And there's a dealer information page. And the dealer fills out the simple form. And they list, we want to know if they're members of any book selling organization. Most of the dealers are members of one organization or another, whether it's ABAA, iLab, or any of the regional bookseller groups. And there are some that do not belong to any of those groups. And we ask for references as well. We're not, you just can't walk off the street and say, "Hey, I want to sell my grandmother's books. Can I do that?" No, you have to be a dealer. That's the criteria.
And there's a vetting process to make sure they're reputable dealers.
Exactly.
Degree. Well, I definitely like the fact, like I said, it's an inexpensive fare compared to the high cost of doing, and I think that really lowers the barrier. Besides, getting vetted as a bookseller, but lowers the barrier in terms of, testing out the market and trying a new type of fare. Well, so you've talked about the price range a little bit of the books that sell, the sweet spot, 300, you said up to $1,000 or so. What type of material do you think sells best? Does it have to be fresh to market? Any type, any subjects you've seen from your data or statistics?
So I see a wide variety of items. I'm seeing a lot of ephemera selling. Um, that seems to be a hot area. Um, you know, I think some of the more edgy items seem to be selling, um, but a lot of classical items are selling as well.
So the stuff that sells is more generally what actually sells in the rare book world, not just the fact that you're a virtual fair, of course. Uh,
Yeah,
One of the things, and I've talked to the booksellers after the fair, I've done, quite well selling through your site, I have to say. I've talked to some other book sellers who have sold very little, but they continue to want to exhibit on your site. Because besides selling books and meeting clients, I have to say it's terrific for promotion because this direct client dealer relationship that you help establish uh, also is mirrored in the virtual world in terms of web traffic. You let dealers put their websites and attract clients to their main business. Is that correct?
right. Yes, yes, absolutely. That's very important. How else am I going to hold on to dealers that sell nothing?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, this is a this is an advertising opportunity. It's a fairly inexpensive one. I've talked to some dealers who have told me just that. You know, people that I said, you're not selling too much. How come you keep coming back? Well, I get clients from your site. These thousands of people that are coming to your site. Some of them might not buy right then, but they may contact me off-site, so to speak.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of discussions that start on your fair and result in a $10,000 sale for another book that
You
nobody
know,
even exhibited at your fair, which is, interesting and quite remarkable, even if you don't get a commission, for that.
exactly. Yeah, and you probably hear things that I'm not privy to because I don't necessarily hear all of those stories.
Sure, exactly. Another thing I like also because of your fairs is, again, this lack of intimidation about the fairs. I think it really broadens the diversity of people. One of the problems we have in the trade is we have a long history of being a white male trade. That's being changed in recent years with a much greater influx of women into the trade, and we're trying to reach out to minorities. And I really think your virtual fairs are superb in terms of attracting diversity. Have you seen that in terms of your clientele? I don't know if you can tell that in your statistics or anything.
But well, I was looking at the statistics a while ago, and yeah, I mean, 45% of the last book fair, which was held, and we had 10,000 people um, come to the fair, if I can use that expression, attendees, individual um, email addresses. 45% were women, so that's very encouraging. Um, and in terms of age, I already mentioned the age range. So yeah, it's been good. I mean, that's really what I want to do. I want to broaden the base. Um, I do see that in my Brooklyn fair as well, whereas I don't see that necessarily at some of my other fairs. That older white male audience tends to uh, be the predominant age, demographic, let's say, at my Boston satellite show or my New York satellite show. Uh, Brooklyn has always attracted, and I've really gone out of my way to try to attract a wider, broader audience by use of social media. I spend a lot of money on social media advertising, which I continue to do for the virtual fairs as well.
So, I mean, generally, rare collectible booksellers are a little bit set in their ways. It's been a long industry, and we put out catalogs, we do our listings in a certain way. So, this is new to a lot of people, of course. I mean, how has your feedback been with the community? Do they view you as an essential asset now, a competitor to sales venues? What is the general feedback, good or bad?
I'm hearing mostly good feedback. There may be negative feedback that I don't hear. These are from my own surveys. They tend to be very negative, and I'm known as a person who sends out a lot of surveys. I want to hear back from the community. I
Sure.
have made changes because of what I hear as feedback, and that's important to me. I listen. The dealers are my customers, and I want to listen to them, and I want to make sure that this meets their needs.
Well, I'm always amazed with the way you interact with dealers in terms of improving your site, addressing any concerns. I joke with one of my booksellers friends, as soon as we send an email, it's like ping, there must be 10,000 Marvin Getmans answering emails because your replies come back so quickly and so well considered. So, uh, well, I would, like I said, I think that more or less wraps up, discussing about the virtual book fair. I don't know if you want to add anything. I mean, certainly I would just encourage anyone who has not been to one of your fairs to go to the website, to register, to test it out. Of course, we'll put this up on YouTube. So there is a fair in 3 days on January 6th. If you watch this video in the future, uh, Marvin understands, going to more or less do them monthly, hopefully, or at least with some regularity. And if you are a bookseller, I can tell you this is a very interesting and viable platform to sell on. You will make sales. You certainly will meet clients, and you will draw traffic to your website. And I find it a great alternative to some of the selling venues that existed, certainly prior to COVID. And you've done a really superb job in putting this together so quickly.
Well, thanks, Adam, and thank you for your outreach. I see you as a innovator, marketer, and I appreciate your. I went to your YouTube channel, and it's fabulous.
Well,
I
we'll
went.
try and keep the compliments one directional this time, but and well,
uh,
thank you again, Marvin, for joining us and everything. And I can't wait for a few more days to your fair.
Thank you, Adam.